Reports are stating that various Saudi clubs are willing to pay Tottenham €40 million plus add-ons for captain Heung-Min Son. Other reports are stating that Spurs won't sell him until after Tottenham's tour to South Korea for contractual reasons. The Premier League fixtures for the new season will be published on Wednesday morning, and Tottenham Hotspur chairman Daniel Levy and new CEO Vinai Venkatesham have been talking about sacking Ange Postecoglou, the appointment of Thomas Frank, the future and trophies. And chairman Daniel Levy has come out and said, "We want to win the Champions League. We want to win the Premier League. We want to win." Hi everyone, hope you're well. Chris Cowlin here. This is another episode of Tottenham News where I'll be going through all of the latest Spurs news, rumours and reports. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do hit that subscribe button, like, share and comment below. And if you're listening to this on an audio platform, please do hit that follow button and leave a review if you can. Now let's start by talking about Tottenham Hotspur captain Heung-Min Son. The Times have just reported that Spurs are willing to sell captain Heung-Min Son this summer, but only after the tour to South Korea. Thomas Frank is keen on squad revamp, but club are commercially contracted to have captain play in his native country in pre-season friendly against Newcastle United. Journalist Ben Jacobs has come out and said that Saudi clubs are willing to pay Tottenham around €40 million plus add-ons to acquire the signing of Heung-Min Son this summer. He has also stated that Spurs do have huge respect for Heung-Min Son and he will not be forced out of the club this summer if a big bid does arrive. Claus Nørgaard, who is a coach with Thomas Frank at Brentford, has come out and said why he isn't joining Thomas Frank's coaching team at Tottenham. He said, "Everything has happened with great respect for each other. I have the best memories with Thomas Frank after working closely together for the last 2.5 years. There were several things that came into play when Thomas moved to Tottenham. Personally, I couldn't make it fit in that well. When you take a job like this one Thomas has taken, it requires enormous dedication, and now we are parting ways. And I greatly appreciate our collaboration over the many years. I'm a football coach and I will be coaching again, but it won't be until the new year." Nørgaard then went on to say, "Due to Brexit, we will be out of England in 2 months, so our plan is to travel around the world and then return to Denmark, where we will then find a place to live." And just a reminder, at 9 a.m. UK time on Wednesday, the fixtures will be released. Tottenham Hotspur will find out the fixtures for the Premier League campaign 2025-2026. On Tuesday, Spurs published a video showing chairman Daniel Levy talking to new CEO Vinai Venkatesham, and they were talking about sacking Ange Postecoglou. They were talking about the appointment of Thomas Frank, and they were talking about the future and what role Vinai Venkatesham is taking at Spurs. Now, rather than reading all of the quotes out, this is what they had to say. This next section is around 7 minutes long.
I've known Vinai for a number of years. Without doubt, he was the candidate. Sometimes, when you employ somebody, you don't know if you're going to get on. But because we've known each other, that risk wasn't there. So I'm very excited that Vinai's joined us, and I think the club is going to benefit enormously from it. Vinai, good communicator, honest, integrity, bright, right? Enjoys being challenged, and I want to be challenged as well.
Working with good people is one of the, if not the leading characteristic I look for when I'm doing a new role. Daniel and I have known each other professionally, as we've said, for a really long time. And I think we've got really complementary skills, and I think we're going to form a really powerful partnership. I'll be taking more of a lead day to day on operational matters on the pitch and off the pitch, but we'll be working on everything together. And certainly there won't be any decisions of any significance that happen at the club that we're not completely joined at the hip on. That doesn't mean that we always agree. We often disagree, and we often challenge each other. But I think that's a good thing. And I think by working together, we'll get to better answers. I think I've got some experience that is going to be valuable and is going to be helpful, but I don't have all the answers. I need to learn. I need to understand more about this football club. And listen, ultimately, in terms of how I see it, it's quite simple. I think a football club exists to make its supporters proud. And the way that you make your supporters proud is by competing to win and ultimately winning trophies. Doing that in a way that's consistent with the histories and the values and the traditions of a club that have been built up over many, many decades. And I'm genuinely not just saying it because he's sitting next to me, but Daniel was a key part of my decision as well. I think one similarity we've got, which is probably not healthy, is I know that we're both absolute workaholics, and there are lots of WhatsApps pinging between us at all hours of the day.
I thought you were going to say we both like red wine.
Yeah, but I don't know as much. I don't know as much about red wine as you. So my immediate priorities around joining the club are really threefold. The first is, of course, football, both on our men's team and our women's team. Obviously, we've got Thomas joining to be our head coach of our men's team. We're all super excited, but the hard work starts here. For our women's team, we've made a difficult decision around Robert. Grateful for everything he's done for the club, but we are going to make a change there as we've announced. So busy in a process at the moment to determine who the next coach will be of Tottenham Hotspur Women. I am very focused on spending a lot of time to understand what's important to our supporters. So I'm listening, I'm watching, I'm reading, and I'm speaking to supporters. Some of that is structured, so I've got meetings with the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust and the Fan Advisory Board coming up in the next couple of weeks. And I want to learn. I want to learn what's on the mind of our supporters. And the final priority for me is spending time with as many of our 800 people as I can. Understanding from them what does the club do brilliantly well that we can build on, and what are the areas where we can improve, because we want this to be the best possible football club it can be, and we've got 800 supremely talented people in this organisation, and we want to make sure that we get the most out of them to further the club.
I'm very grateful to Ange. I don't regret appointing Ange. In his first season we finished fifth, and in our second season we were over the moon to win a trophy. But we need to compete in all competitions, and we felt that we needed a change. I've got an excellent relationship with him. I told him you're always going to be part of our history. Himself and his family always welcome back. It was a collective decision, it wasn't my decision. We do everything together. Emotionally it was difficult, but we believe we've made the right decision for the club. Whenever you have a new coach, it's always a fresh start. Always have different ideas. But we want to build on the success of winning a trophy last season. I mean, one of the things that stood out to me with Thomas, clearly highly intelligent, great communicator, super human being, plus all the other technical aspects that are obviously important. But, they really stood out to me in those 3 parts.
So we ran a really, really thorough process at speed. We defined 10 characteristics that we think are important to be a successful manager at Tottenham Hotspur. We analysed in real detail, through our technical staff led by Johan, more than 30 candidates. We had a shortlist. We spent a lot of time with the shortlist, and Thomas was absolutely the number one candidate, and could not be more excited to have him join the club. I agree with everything that Daniel said around his characteristics. Personally, one of the things I'm really excited about, that he is an outstanding developer of young players. So I really look forward to seeing what he can do with the squad that we have here. I think the club has got wonderful foundations. I'm biased. I grew up in London, so I think the club is based in the greatest city in the world. It has an outstanding stadium and training centre, and it's got a huge global fan base. The foundations are brilliant, but I wouldn't be here if I didn't think that there was another level that this football club can get to. We got a bit of a taste of that in Bilbao. I think everyone associated with the club wants more of that. And I think there is another level this club can get to, and I wouldn't be here if I didn't think that level was there.
We're very proud of the stadium, but we need to make sure we win on the pitch. There's no point in having a wonderful stadium if you haven't got a wonderful team and winning. I mean, the reason we do all these other events is to provide additional financial resources to the club, which in turn goes back into the team. Everything is about the team. Everything.
I don't know how you do it. I remember, I think when you got to 20 years, you might not remember this. I remember I sent you a nice bottle of wine with a letter saying, I don't know how you've done it for so long, because it just takes everything from you. It just, the energy you need to put into it. So your stamina is quite something.
I've got very broad shoulders. Failure's not an option. The desire to succeed. And because it's so difficult, I want to succeed even more.
my perspective of you is I think you have got a very thick skin and you've got very broad shoulders, but I also see how much it affects you because I can see how much you want to win, right? So I think sometimes there's a perspective that because you have got a thick skin that it doesn't affect you, but I see it does. And I could see it in you before the Bilbao final because I could see just how much you wanted it.
The pressure and the disappointment of not winning over a number of years, I just wanted it so desperately, not just for me, my family, but all the fans around the world. We deserve some luck. And that last 7 or so minutes was horrific. It felt like hours. So when that final whistle went, that was just an amazing experience. And you saw the outpouring of emotion with the parade. You know, it was just incredible. We've won a European trophy. It's not enough. It's what we haven't done that is more important. We need to win the league. We want to win the Premier League. We want to win the Champions League. But, you know, we want to win.
Now, my thoughts on everything in this episode. Let's start by talking about Spurs captain Heung-Min Son. 40 million euros plus add-ons. Saudi clubs are apparently interested in the Tottenham Hotspur captain and South Korean star. Now, why wouldn't you be interested in our captain? Because he still has so much to offer, so much to give. Yes, he's 33 next month, but he does still have a lot in his locker. And I personally would like to see Son stay. Of course, it is going to be a very tough decision for the player himself. It's going to be a very tough decision for the football club. And, you know, from what we're hearing via these reports, it will be really weird that Son goes to pre-season, particularly that game in South Korea against Newcastle, then plays in that game, you know, waves to all the fans. The fans absolutely adore him in South Korea. Everyone adores him around the world, but particularly in South Korea, of course, his home country. Can you imagine him then coming back and then being sold to another club? I'll tell you what, this would be like Harry Kane all over again. Harry Kane going on the tour, then playing in our final pre-season game at home, doing extremely well, scoring a good few goals in that game, and then going off to Bayern Munich. And what a start it would be for Thomas Frank. You know, it'd be a very similar start to Ange Postecoglou. Postecoglou starts, Harry Kane leaves. Thomas Frank starts, Heung-Min Son leaves. Personally, I'm hoping that Son does stay because I feel like he will be a fantastic player from the bench for us. He will be a game changer from the bench for us. This is if he's not going to be starting games, and this is if Spurs go big in the transfer window. You know, there's no reason why Heung-Min Son can't start games, but I'm just saying, if Spurs went big in the transfer window and Thomas Frank wanted to go down a different route, then, you know, Son has so much to offer. Leadership qualities as well. Of course, he's our captain. He can start games. He can come off the bench. He can score goals. He can assist. I know a lot of people at the moment are saying that they would like to see him leave and they would like to see him, you know, go out on a high, having just lifted us the Europa League trophy. But I disagree. But I do feel like it's got to be Son's choice. And I feel like the club owe him that as well. Let him make the choice. Let's not make this about money. Let him, you know, make the choice and be happy. He's been a great servant to the football club. Whatever does happen, though, he will go down as a Spurs legend. Of course, the amount of games he's played for us, the amount of goals he's played for us, the amount of time that he's stuck by Spurs through all of the tough times when we haven't won a trophy. You know, he could go out now on a real high because having just lifted the trophy. So let's wait and see on that one. The fixtures are out on Wednesday morning. Really looking forward to that because, of course, you know, when the season ends, everyone's like, oh, okay. And then after about a week or so, everyone's like, oh, when's the football back? And you know, I'm looking forward to the new season, of course, new manager. But, of course, we do need signings. You know I keep banging on about the signings, you know, experienced players, etc. But that does need to happen. And that leads me on very nicely to talk about the chat that Daniel Levy and Vinai Venkatesham had on Tuesday, published by Spurs, around 7 minutes long, of them two talking about the decision to sack Ange Postecoglou, the decision to then appoint Thomas Frank. They were talking about the future. They were talking about Venkatesham's role at the club. You know, they had a little bit of, you know, joking around, talking about wine, etc., and all of that. And I know a lot of people found that a bit cringy. But they were also talking about trophies. Daniel Levy talking about wanting to win the Premier League. Daniel Levy talking about wanting to win the Champions League. Talking about wanting just to win. I love that attitude, but of course we do need the strength in depth as well. Not only in the starting 11, but we need the depth on the bench as well throughout the whole of the squad, especially when you're playing the Champions League. You can't just say, I want to win the Champions League and I want to win the Premier League just by a little bit of hope and a little bit of luck. We need that quality. We absolutely need that quality in the squad, and I really hope that Thomas Frank gets the tools that he needs to take this club forward. And Daniel Levy also spoke out about, let this, be a start. We've won a trophy. Let that momentum carry on, and let's win another one. Let's go all out to go and win another one. The club and Daniel Levy in particular, especially on this video that came out on Tuesday, he talks again about about fighting on all fronts. If you want to be fighting on all fronts, you need a very, very strong squad. I get that you can develop players, and I've no doubt at all, because this was spoken about in that video as well, that Thomas Frank, very progressive manager. He improves players. He works with players, gets the best out of players. But you can't just rely on that. There needs to be a real good mixture. So it needs to be developing players. You need to be bringing youth through as well. You need to be buying in top talent, and the recruitment decision making needs to be absolutely top notch. So there is a lot to it. But I must say, I'm very, very impressed that they did this video. Daniel Levy doesn't like doing these types of things. You don't really see him doing this sort of stuff at all. And I've no doubt that Vinai Venkatesham probably asked him to do it and probably persuaded Daniel Levy to do it. And this could be a change. We could be getting these sorts of updates on a regular basis. I hope so, because I do like these types of updates from the club. And I do believe, however, whatever results you're getting on the pitch, whether you're winning or whether you're losing, whether you're going through a really good spell and whether you're going through a really bad spell, these sorts of updates and these sorts of communication pieces should always be there, because, when the club have done this type of thing before, similar, whether it would be a fans forum or whether it would be like an update from Fabio Paratici, etc. These have always been done when we are doing fairly well in league competition or in the cup competitions. They haven't really been done when we've been, through a difficult stage, difficult spell. However, I do believe that they should have put a lot more in it, but it was a 7-minute episode. If they're going to do regular 7-minute episodes like every month, then perhaps they'll put a little bit more. They didn't really say why they didn't give Ange a third season. They touched on it really quickly about, appointing Thomas Frank. They said that they had 30 different candidates and he was always number one. But they talked about trophies a lot. And, when we as fans have tasted that success, in that Europa League final, we want to feel like that all the time. I certainly do anyway. Lifting that trophy in Bilbao, seeing Sonny lift it, and then of course the parade was just unbelievable. What a day that was! A couple of 100,000 fans down the high road. I have dreamt of that moment, and that became a reality. A couple of days after the day in Bilbao, it was incredible, and we want to feel like that again. But like I said, I feel like it's really good to get these videos out, the communication, and Vinai has obviously come out and said that he wants to be talking to, the fans, he wants to be talking to the FAB, he wants to be talking to the supporters trust, etc. He wants to learn, he wants to know how he can improve things at the football club. This could be a really good shake-up at board level. Only time will tell. Only time will tell. And, can he persuade? Because they also spoke out about agreeing on some things, disagreeing on some things. They WhatsApp each other at ridiculous hours of the day, etc. Like Vinai come out and said. But Daniel Levy also come out and said he needs to be challenged, and I like that. He's got to be challenged. Every successful business, organisation, whatever it is, you need to be challenging people all the time to make sure that they are doing their job properly. Be that critical friend, be that critical person to say, look, are you doing this right? Have you done this right? Have you learned from previous mistakes? Because let's face it, we have been through now, I think we've just appointed our 18th manager in 24 years. So at some point, I feel like someone's got to say, do we really want to be going down this same route like we've done before? have you done this before? Because if you have, let's change it up. Let's do something different. So Vinai could be that guy to actually say to Daniel Levy, well, we've done this before. And, he's come from Arsenal as well. And, they might have done things very, very differently. So he might bring, some skills that perhaps haven't been at board level for the past couple of years. So that's going to be a very interesting situation, how that progresses, how that develops. And he might even persuade Daniel Levy to, pay more in wages to certain players that haven't signed for Spurs before because they feel like they could get more money elsewhere. But a lot of things that we could talk about during that. We actually done a podcast Tuesday evening, Matt, Richard, Craig and I, and we spoke about it at length. So if you want to check that out, please do. But watch this space on that. But I do like the fact that they have communicated, and I hope that this continues on a regular basis. Thanks for watching and thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're watching on YouTube, please do hit that subscribe button, like, share and comment below. And if you're listening to this on an audio platform, please do hit the follow button and leave a review if you can. Have a great week. I'll see you on the next one. Come on, you Spurs.